morning and welcome back to the lecture series on tribal studies in India, interdisciplinary approaches and perspectives. So, today we are going to talk about the oral traditions of the different tribes in India. As I have already mentioned in my previous lectures, oral tradition is prevalent among the different indigenous or tribal groups. Their mode of passing down knowledge to the next generation is through telling their myths, retelling and remembering the myths. Oral tradition therefore is the process of handing down of a given group's ancient heritage and knowledge system to the younger generations through non-written, non-documented means. It encompasses a wide range of cultural expressions which include the ballads, folk songs, stories, traditions, beliefs, games, dances, music and musical instruments, social customs as well as the popular arts and crafts. Oral tradition comprises conveying of statements, beliefs, rules, customs and practices through spoken words or direct practice which needs to be inculcated in turn by the younger generation rather than through referring to any written piece, any written documented work. There is this very famous African proverb that has been quoted by D.K. Bhattacharya in his work. It says, "When an old man dies, a library burns to the ground." So, the old man, the wizened person from any community, from any family is a repository of knowledge. When he dies, the knowledge goes with him or her. So, D.K. Bhattacharya notes that such unrecorded wisdom of oral traditions includes the crucial insights into the ecosystem and the efficacy of different herbs. So, it is the way of living, it is the world view that the older generation carry with them, and this world view includes their spirituality, their philosophy, their world system, their social systems, their customs, traditions and so forth, their myths, their knowledge of ancestors. So, it is like a history which is additive in nature, where the next generation and the generation after that will keep adding their own knowledge, their own records of history. So, recognizing its importance, recognizing the importance of oral literature or oral knowledge, UNESCO's Intangible Heritage website specifically emphasizes the need to safeguard this form of knowledge that exists without any written records, because it actually contains, it is the receptacle of an entire people's knowledge or wisdom that has been accumulated over a long period of time. According to Indira Chaudhary, oral tradition recognized as cultural heritage includes various performances as well as spoken stories. Oral history and oral traditions both provide narratives as well as storytelling forms. What is more, the interpretation of these can serve as a resource for historical understanding of these tribes. So, understanding the oral tradition's historical value entails different interpretive methods. Dismissing oral culture as fiction, on the other hand, reduces their worth as historical resources. While anthropology in the West has long dismissed oral tradition as relevant to its analysis, India's profound richness in the area of oral culture and oral tradition means that it cannot afford to disregard such a valuable body of knowledge for academic purposes. Scholar and critic Nandini Sahu writes that the tribal communities preserve their shared history through diverse literary forms, which include the folk tales, epics, songs, ballads, proverbs, myths, riddles and ritual chants. These are not merely artistic expressions. They embody the lineage of any clan, the tribal knowledge systems as well as the cosmologies, all of which generate their entire philosophy, the tribal ritual complex, which may be very different from and therefore challenge the Western literary concepts and the Western standards. Tribal literature extends beyond art. It is integral to their cultural heritage, and it strengthens their social bonds and reflects their unique understanding of the world. There are rituals where the older generations just narrate the story of origin, the tribal myth about the origin of earth, and it is told to the younger generation who are sitting together and listening. So, it is a moment of the communities coming together, and through a shared memory they prop up their sense of community, the sense of a unified community, right. It is a knowledge being acquired from the older people by the younger ones, and they in turn will retell it to the next generation. That is how the oral culture, the oral tradition survives across time and space. So, these oral traditions have long been excluded from mainstream literary criticism. In fact, they have not been taken up so much, and they have often been dismissed as primitive or unsophisticated. This marginalization tends to overlook the complex narrativity, the philosophical insights, as well as the socio-political critiques that are present within tribal literature. A lot of these pieces of wisdom or these adages, these wise sayings are also very scientific in nature. They enable us to decode different mysteries of nature, even cure to different ailments, cure to different social maladies. All of these are present in the form of oral tradition. Verrier Elwin and Shamrao Hivle, in their work Folk Songs of Michael Hills, which came out in 1944, observe that the tribal poetry often possesses remarkable beauty in both its form and content, its imagery and symbolism. The subtle artistry of the original works is, however, frequently impossible to capture in their entirety when translated to another language. So, in translation, a lot is diluted, corrupted and lost. However, an attempt to translate the tribal oral tradition is crucial. It is meaningful and timely intervention before such extraordinary oral literature disappears due to the spread of education, modern education and decline of the tribal communities. So, there has to be an active intervention and translation of these works, otherwise they may fast disappear, and it would be very difficult to trace back to the roots of these works, or to even capture them in another language in their authentic form. Symbolism abounds in the material of this entire volume titled Folk Songs of Michael Hills, and it forms the core of the song's poetry, often rendering these songs as unintelligible. They are not immediately intelligible to the readers unless the readers make an attempt, make an effort to understand the tribal cosmos, the alternative tribal ecosystem. So, the readers should have the references clear in their mind if they are to appreciate the tribal poems, the tribal ballads and myths. Here is one such piece I am going to read out. Oh ho hi, in the middle of the path is a creeper heavy with goats. I have searched in every creeper, but I have found nothing. So, a young man's search for a wife has been poetically expressed through this poem, and it tells about a fruitless hunt for goats on creepers, where the creepers symbolize the villages and the goats represent the girl that the man is searching for and wants to marry, but the entire search has so far been fruitless. This musical symbolism is interwoven with that of dreams, omens and riddles, and also draws on folk tales. The authors note that the Gond and Pardhan tribes, I quote, think and talk in symbols of all their lives. So, they think and talk in symbols all their lives, unquote, underscoring that the symbolism of the songs is simply the symbolism of their everyday life that has been set to music. Next, we are going to talk about the Suwa songs. Whether in Chhattisgarh or in the Michael Hills, the Suwa dance and songs exhibit minimal variation. Women form a circle, bending forward and clapping as they move, their steps imitating a parrot's gait. So, at this stage I would also like to talk about another tribe, a major tribe, the Santalis, whose dance forms or their dancing style is equally coordinated. So, one thing that informs the dance of the different tribal groups, one common factor is that the dance movements are highly coordinated. They emulate the planetary movements, and so each unit, each dancer as a unit is only one strand in the larger pattern. It actually sheds the human egotism about the self being, above a community, above everything else. The one human is just a strand, just one unit in the larger chain of being, in the larger chain of this system, within the larger scheme of things, be it the cosmological movement, the planetary movements, they consider themselves as only a tiny dot. And so, when we interview such indigenous people, where from they have learned their dances, they say that they were born with dance and music in their, in their blood. Maybe they learned it from their mother's womb, and that is to an extent true, because even the children match the steps so well with the adults, as if they grow up, just listening to songs, dancing. There is no such formal training, and yet the steps, the foot movements are so coordinated. It intrigues an outsider. It amazes an outsider how well coordinated and synchronized their movements can be, and how well disciplined the movements, how graceful and effortless their movements can be. Actually, they look so spontaneous and natural. At festivals, the tribes occasionally carry the clay parrots on their heads. The songs frequently feature the parrot as a trusted friend and guide, especially for young married women. In this following song, the bird offers comfort with soothing words, doing its best to console a sorrowful lover. So, this is how the Sua song goes. You sit with your flute in the cold shadow of the kadam tree. The cows are scattered in the honey-sweet forest. Listen, little brother, asks the parrot, what sorrow has withered you in the honey-sweet forest? Go home today, little brother, I will look after your cows. Unquote. There are many such poems where the bird is speaking to the sorrowful lover, or even the bird is speaking to a mahua tree. And the enactment of this conversation, when done by a tribal, when performed by a tribal, is so interesting. There is another such poem, I don't have it with me right now. It's a song where the bird and the tree, the mahua tree, they speak to each other and they lament the process of deforestation. They lament the process, how urbanization is stretching its arms and spreading its claws and kind of causing all the greenery to disappear. So, it's a lamentation through a conversation between a bird and a tree. Where will the tree go next, and where will the bird make its nest, right? And the performance is so beautiful. The tribal person who sings it actually is using a dual voice, once that of the tree and then that of the parrot. Elwin and Hivale record some political songs as well. The most deeply felt songs, however, concern a more ancient grievance. Like I was saying, the grievance of regarding the loss of land and status due to modern competition, modernization and urbanization that disrupt their natural organic way of being. This is how the song goes. Eh hey hi, the German-English war. From Jabalpur the lorries run, from Bombay come the cars, the railway comes from Delhi, from Raipur runs the wire. As I was selling sweets in the Raipur bazaar, the English troops came running, the planes flew overhead. Do not trick us into decay. In the old days, the Gond Raja, the Gond landlord, remitted our taxes, let us graze our cattle free. But today the Hindu landlord, the Hindu merchant taxes twice as much and snares us with sweet words. So that grievance of being exploited, of being cheated is clearly reflected through the poems. Poems become, they actually act as piece of history. They attest to their past. They are like a record of their past experiences. Once the Gond Raja had the land, now the English have the Raj. Now before you put down your foot, you must blow on the path, clear it. Rama and Lakshman were dwellers in the forest. They chased the deer and killed it when the Gond Raja had the land. So in Gond, tribal poems, there are frequent references to the Ramayana characters and the different chapters, different episodes of Ramayana, owing to the fact that their geography is centering the Dandakaranya forest, where a large part of a large chunk of Ramayana narrative also takes place, where Rama and Lakshmana are actually staying with Sita for some time. So we see that in Gond poems, this inspiration, reflects from time to time. These oral narratives also preserve the shared history of the tribe. As W.G. Archer notes, the records of these songs convey the community's sentiments. And these songs can also be very political in nature, like some of the previous songs that I just read out. The song I will mention now also has a strong political undertone. Sidhu, why are you bathed in blood? Kanu, why do you cry hul hul? For our people we have bathed in blood, for the trader thieves have robbed us of our land. So to conclude, one of the most devastating aspects of the interaction between the tribal or aboriginal peoples and civilization, the modern civilization, is the often resulting destruction of the former's art and culture. So whenever aboriginal culture meets the modern civilization, it results in demolishing or destroying or corrupting the tribal art and culture. This echoes William Morris's concern about the danger of civilization's current path, which might lead to the loss of life's beauty altogether. Nandini Sahu notes that the Bihanbora tales of the Santhal community, like the widespread creation myths, narrate the origins of life and humanity's relationship with nature, right? The creation myths, which are found in all religious traditions and often are held as sacred, are the mystical stories that explain the origins of the universe, life, earth and humanity, as well as the beginnings of social and natural aspects of existence. However, a general neglect of the tribal knowledge repertoire by mainstream scholarship and academic curriculum has led to the exclusion and overlooking of their oral narratives from the literary canon. So they have seldom made it to the literary canon. They have never been included as part of the literary canon and something that needs to be taught at school, college or university levels. So this way the culture becomes decadent, dying, evanescent, and the larger audience, the larger readers have no clue about such rich tradition even existing. In Odisha, the vibrant oral epics of tribes such as that of the Kond and the Sora are rarely found in academic syllabi or literary anthologies. Same with other parts of India, they do not incorporate it as part of the academic system or academic curricula. And so these areas remain blind spots, they remain highly under researched, which leaves the desire, which brings the desire to unravel and study them further. The legend of Tara Tarini, a foundational Kond epic, remains largely unrecognized, unread or even unresearched outside of the tribal circles. Such marginalization continues a cultural hierarchy which devalues the indigenous knowledge systems. So, tribal literature, which is largely oral, has historically been sidelined in literary discourse and has been viewed as inferior to written forms by mainstream criticism. And this entire perspective is bequeathed to the Indian academic system by the Eurocentric view, by the European civilization. So, the European civilization understands history to be only something that is written, that is a concrete book, a text, a palpable text. If it is not something like that, if it is more complex, ramified, discursive and exists, in a fluid form among the people, then it is not given the status of literature or art, which is fallacious once again. So, we have to understand tribal literature in its own right for what it has to offer, rather than studying it or approaching it through the Eurocentric perspectives. With this, I come to the end of my lecture today. Let us meet with another topic and another round of discussions in my next lecture. Thank you.